Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and move on to the next bill, which is HB1027. This would prohibit an absentee ballot voter from receiving assistance from the voter's employer, union, or a candidate listed on the ballot. First up, we have the Office of Elections. Comments. Okay, thank you. Next up, we have the prosecuting attorney. I guess for Honolulu. On support. Okay, thank you. Next, Honolulu City Clerk. In support. Next, we have County Clerk of Kauai with comments. And if we had a video system, maybe we could listen to that person here now, but we don't. Next, we have County Clerk of Maui.
Standing my comments.
Oh, you're here. Thanks for coming. Comments. Next up, we have League of Women Voters. Ms. Mason.
Thank you, Chair Rhodes and Vice Chair Har. League of Women Voters strongly supports the intent of this bill, and we have two suggested amendments. It's our strong recommendation that Hawaii move to more modern elections by 2016, adopting a vote-by-mail program statewide, which makes the precautions described in this bill very important. But since many voters in Hawaii are already voting absentee, and since it's becoming increasingly popular for those who do vote, we support the July 1st, 2013 effective date. We think the provision in the bill requiring voters to sign a statement that the ballot was completed in secrecy may confuse people or be restrictive enough that voters might hesitate to vote. The bill also prohibits employers, unions, and candidates from assisting voters, and we suggest that that requirement for a signature be dropped from the bill. The bill also prohibits employers, unions, and candidates from assisting voters with completing the ballots, name specific parties. This may be borrowed from federal election law. While it may be a really good thing for these intermediaries not to assist voters in completing a ballot, we think the bill should be amended to make the prohibition broader, to include anybody whom the voter has not freely chosen to help them complete the ballot. We suggest a more inclusive statement for Section B of the bill, which would say, any person who by use of force or other means unduly influences an elector to vote in a particular manner or to refrain from voting. So it's a little broader than just those three categories. And we also propose that the warning statement be printed on the absentee ballot so that everybody knows about the law and can refer to it if they need to. We support the penalties, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Common Cause Hawaii. In support. Next, we have Imua Alliance.
Stand on our written testimony in support.
In support, thank you. Next, we have Anna Kaseki. In support. Next, we have Gerald Eubank. In support. Next, we have Jerry Velasco. In support. Next, we have John Ellis. In support. Next, we have Kathleen Lee. In support. Next, we have Kristen Butak. In support. Next, we have Megan Muramatsu. In support. Next, we have Amateo Gogo Iwoterai. In support. Next, we have Stacy Takakawa. In support. Susan Eubank in support, Troy Abraham in support, Bennett Guira in support. Next we have Christine Kahn in support, Flora Wu in support, Marcher Thompson in support, Maya Ross, Yvette Butak, all in support, Jeff A. Jones in support, Matthew Pisa in support, Pualana Pakele and Cabot in support, Imelda Ulanka in support, and Sean Hathiramani in support. Next we have Tiffany Aoyama in support, and Devin Madan in support, Avelino J. Halagao in support. Next is Judith Kaseki. Seems like I said that name already, but
No.
in support. Different Kaseki. It was Anna Kaseki before. Michonne Kawaguchi in support, Lynn Kaseki in support, Kevin Velasco in support, and Joanne Adams in support, followed by Justin Ferruta in support and Tracy M. Kamahiro in support. That's all the written testimony we have. Anyone else wishing to testify in HB 1027? Seeing none, members, questions? Chair Har, Vice Chair Har.
Thank you, Chair. Office of Elections. Good afternoon, Mr. Nago. Thank you for being with us. So I read the written testimony, the comments provided from the Office of Elections, and you've heard the testimony of the League of Women Voters regarding deleting the signature requirement, etc. Any thoughts as to those comments provided by the League of Women Voters?
Yeah, the signature requirement would be difficult for us because you're requiring a voter to sign that, and currently they just have to sign it once, and we have voters who don't sign that. So if they don't sign the signature requirement, their vote would not be counted, and that's not something we would want to see. We would have to invalidate that ballot. So by adding additional signature requirements, you're just giving it more opportunity to invalidate a ballot.
Okay, so take us through the process now. It's my understanding that when somebody votes absentee, they will sign they seal the envelope and then they sign across that seal, correct?
No, they sign on the envelope.
Okay, they sign on the envelope.
And that signature is verified with the signature that's on file to make sure it's the person who voted is the person who actually is that person who requested the ballot.
Okay, so if a voter does not sign that, the back of that envelope, then that ballot is essentially that ballot is essentially considered spoiled, or
yes, we don't count it because we don't know if the voter actually voted that ballot. The signature is like the check that the voter actually who requested that ballot voted that ballot.
Okay, so in that case, does the Office of Elections then contact that voter and advise that or inform them that that ballot has been spoiled because of a lack of authentication?
A lot of times the clerks from the neighbor islands and the various counties will send that ballot back to the voter to have them sign it, but not all of them return it. I mean,
who's not all of them? I'm sorry.
Not all the voters return the ballot.
Okay, but
some of them are on vacation. I mean, that's why they're voting absentee. They're not always there when it gets sent back.
Okay, but the city clerk's office or the county clerk's office will actually send
to try and get them to sign that ballot.
Okay, so there is an attempt to
there
at least.
There is an attempt, yes.
Okay, advise them. Okay, so in this situation, but what if we were just to simply not require separate signature, but we were just to continue on and have some attestation underneath the signature outside the envelope?
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Not seeing none. Please, you should say there, Mr. Nago. Okay, so existing law, which in HRS 11-139, existing law, a voter can ask for assistance just not from the voter's employer or the agent of that employer or agent of the voter's union. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so is there any reason why a candidate should be? Well, first of all, does 11-139 does that apply to absentee voting as well?
Well, it says voting, so it could be interpreted to apply.
How has it been interpreted?
As voting, so it
applies to everybody.
Yes.
So already you're not allowed to have your employer or your union agent there.
Correct.
At any, whether it's absentee walk, absentee mail,
or a regular
voting. Okay. So is there any reason a candidate should be allowed to assist a voter in any of those situations, absentee walk, absentee mail, regular walk-in voting?
No. I don't see why a candidate should be allowed to assist the voter.
I always thought they weren't, so when people offer their ballots to me, I've always run the other way. But in any case, what about federal law? Is there any federal law implication with regard to that?
Federal law, basically our law mirrors the federal law.
So federal law doesn't say anything about the candidate either? Okay. Let's see. Okay, so under existing law, if a prohibited person, if a employer or a union person were to interfere in the process, what's the penalty for that?
I believe it's a Class C felony. However, we don't have investigative powers at the office, so we would forward it over to the Attorney General's office for a follow-up.
So can you tell us where we could, because we couldn't, I think what we had concluded was that it was a misdemeanor, but I'm not sure what the reference is.
I don't know. I would have to get back to you on that one.
Well, we'll try to finesse that. So we have to report this out today if we're going to move it. So we'll try to get it as right as we can. And are you aware of any? Is there a penalty under federal law for the same infraction of having a union agent or an employer interfere?
I believe it's the only one I can think of is federal voter fraud, election fraud. I'm sorry, which is punishable by fine and/or imprisonment.
So
it's Chapter 19, I believe.
But they don't have the same classifications of felonies. It's a felony, though?
I believe election fraud is a Class C felony.
Class C, at the federal level, too?
I'm not sure about the federal level.
Okay. I already asked. Okay, so I think you've already answered this, but in your opinion, the penalty for a prohibited person who assists a voter with an absentee ballot, there's no distinction between that and interfering at the polling place. So your contention is that the 11-139 applies everywhere.
Everywhere. I mean, for the act of voting.
Okay. And then regarding retention of the return envelope, I think the bill says that we would have to keep it for 48 months. And I believe your testimony said no need. Federal law is 22 or
months.
something like that. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Now, people who vote in a polling place, they have to sign something when they come in, if I remember correctly.
The poll book.
The poll book, but that's not the same thing as what this bill requires in terms of. Well, I think Representative Har and League of Women Voters were talking about this too. There's a separate in this bill. There's a separate requirement for an affirmation that there was nobody influencing you when you voted.
Yes.
But that's not required at the polling spot.
No.
Okay. All right, thanks very much. Members, any other questions? If not, let's go ahead and move on to the next bill.